Hashtag Human Sniper Team arrives. The Empire was unprepared for their kill count. The Zetharian Empire had conquered 17 star systems in less than 3 standard years. Their massive war fleets darkened the skies of countless worlds, and their ground forces moved like unstoppable tides across alien landscapes. Emperor Vextar sat on his crystal throne, reviewing holographic displays of his latest victories with satisfaction. The galaxy trembled before Zetharian might, and surrender seemed to be the only option for any species unfortunate enough to cross their path. The humans had been different from the start. When the Zetharian fleet arrived at the edge of human space, they expected the usual pattern. First, they would broadcast their demands for immediate surrender. Then, after the inevitable refusal, they would demonstrate their overwhelming firepower by destroying a few military outposts. Finally, the terrified species would capitulate, begging for mercy that rarely came. Instead, the humans had done something unprecedented. They simply vanished. Admiral Krelnox commanded the Zetharian invasion fleet from his flagship, the dreadnought Eternal Dominion. Standing over 9 feet tall with skin like polished obsidian, and for arms that ended in razor-sharp claws, he embodied the physical superiority that had made his species the terror of the galaxy. Yet as he stared at the empty space where human colonies should have been, confusion clouded his predatory features. "Report," he growled, his voice carrying the authority of countless victories. "Sir, we have scanned 14 human systems. All planetary installations have been abandoned. No ships, no defensive platforms, no population centers. It's as if they evacuated their entire civilization." The communications officer's tone betrayed his own bewilderment. Krelnox flexed his claws. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever completely evacuated before the Zetharian Empire even arrived. Most fought desperately for their homeworlds, making the eventual subjugation all the more satisfying. This strategic withdrawal suggested a level of discipline and planning that made him uneasy. Deploy probe networks throughout human space. Find where they've gone. A civilization cannot simply disappear. His orders echoed through the fleet, and soon thousands of automated probes spread across the human territories like a vast net. 3 days later, the probes began to disappear. Not destroyed in obvious attacks that would show up on sensors. Not captured in dramatic raids that would leave debris fields. They simply stopped transmitting one by one in a pattern that suggested something was methodically hunting them through the darkness of space. Captain Zexmari, leader of the elite Zetharian ground forces, studied the probe loss reports with growing irritation. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, with the characteristic bone ridges that marked him as a member of the warrior caste, he had led successful planetary invasions on 43 worlds. His troops were legendary for their ferocity and their advanced technology. The idea that some hidden human force was picking off their reconnaissance assets should have been impossible. "Sir, we've lost contact with another probe cluster in the Kepler 442 system. That's the 7th group in 2 days." His aide delivered the news with barely concealed anxiety. "Impossible. Our probes are equipped with the finest cloaking technology in the galaxy. They're virtually undetectable." Zexmari's confidence wavered slightly as he spoke. The Zetharian Empire's technological superiority had been absolute for centuries. Their weapons, their shields, their sensors, everything was designed to overwhelm any opposition through sheer technological advantage. "Perhaps they're malfunctioning?" the aide suggested hopefully. 73 probes don't all malfunction in the same way. Zexmari dismissed the idea with a gesture. "No, something is hunting them." "But what?" The answer came sooner than expected. A damaged probe, its communication array barely functional, transmitted a brief burst of data before falling silent forever. The images it captured in its final moments showed something that chilled even the battle-hardened Zetharian officers. A human ship, sleek and angular, appeared from nowhere in the probe's vicinity. But it wasn't the ship that caught their attention. It was what came next. A projectile, moving at incredible velocity, struck the probe with perfect precision from a distance that should have made accurate targeting impossible. The probe's final sensor reading showed the projectile had traveled over 200,000 kilometers before impact. Admiral Krelnox studied the data with growing unease. The Zetharians had never encountered a species capable of such long-range precision. Their own weapons were devastatingly powerful, but they relied on energy-based systems that lost effectiveness over extreme distances. This human attack had been kinetic, physical, and impossibly accurate. Analysis suggests the projectile was a simple metal slug accelerated to near-relativistic speeds, reported the fleet's chief scientist. No explosive warhead, no energy enhancement, pure kinetic impact. How is that possible? At such ranges, even our most advanced targeting systems would struggle to maintain accuracy. Krelnox's 4 arms gestured in agitation. Unknown, sir. The humans appear to have developed targeting methodologies beyond our current understanding. The uncomfortable truth was beginning to dawn on the Zetharian command. They had built their empire on the assumption of overwhelming technological and physical superiority. Their warriors were stronger, their ships more powerful, their weapons more devastating. But the humans seemed to be fighting by entirely different rules. 3 more probe squadrons vanished over the next day, each one picked off with the same impossible precision. The pattern was becoming clear. Something was systematically eliminating their reconnaissance network, blind shooting their most advanced stealth technology with casual efficiency. Emperor Vextar received the reports with growing fury. From his palace on the conquest world of Nexus Prime, he watched the holographic displays showing probe after probe winking out of existence. The Zetharian Empire had never faced this kind of methodical, patient opposition. "They're playing games with us," he snarled, his massive form radiating anger. "No species has ever dared to mock the Empire's might. Your Majesty, perhaps we should proceed with caution. These humans are clearly more advanced than our initial intelligence suggested." His chief advisor, ancient even by Zetharian standards, spoke carefully. "Caution? Caution is for the weak. Deploy the main battle fleet. I want these humans crushed, their worlds burned, their resistance broken. Show them what happens when they challenge Zetharian supremacy." The orders went out across the Empire. The largest invasion fleet in Zetharian history began assembling at the edge of human space. Thousands of warships, millions of ground troops, and the most advanced weapons in their arsenal. They would sweep through human territory like an unstoppable storm, ending this embarrassing resistance once and for all. But deep in the darkness between stars, human eyes watched through scopes that could resolve targets across impossible distances. Human fingers rested on triggers connected to weapons that could reach out and touch anything within several light minutes. And human minds, trained in patience and precision that alien warriors could barely comprehend, began planning shots that would echo across the galaxy. The Zetharian Empire was about to learn why humans had developed the concept of the sniper. #Human Sniper Team arrives. Part 2. Sarah Chun floated in the command module of the stealth vessel Ghostwalker, her enhanced cybernetic eye interfacing directly with the ship's targeting systems. Around her, the most elite sniper team humanity had ever assembled worked in perfect silence. Each member had been selected from billions of candidates, their natural abilities enhanced with technology that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. "Target acquisition confirmed," whispered Marcus Rodriguez, his voice barely audible even in the ship's hushed atmosphere. Through his scope, a Zetharian probe drifted obliviously through space, its alien sensors scanning for signs of human presence while remaining completely unaware of the predators watching from beyond its detection range. Range, 187,000 kilometers. Wind correction, 0. Gravitational influence, minimal. Rodriguez had been born on Luna, where the low gravity had allowed his nervous system to develop with superhuman steadiness. His enhanced reflexes could compensate for micro-movements that would throw off shots across interplanetary distances. The weapon he operated wasn't quite like anything else in human space. A magnetic accelerator capable of propelling tungsten penetrators at significant fractions of light speed. "Confirm target priority," Chin replied, her augmented mind processing trajectory calculations that would have required supercomputers just decades earlier. Firing solution locked. The shot itself was almost anticlimactic. A brief magnetic pulse, a tungsten rod accelerating beyond the ship's hull, and then silence. The projectile would take several minutes to reach its target, traveling through the vacuum at speeds that made detection nearly impossible until impact. Time to target, 4 minutes, 17 seconds, announced Gene Watanabe, the team's sensor specialist. His neural implants allowed him to process data from a dozen different detection systems simultaneously, building a three-dimensional picture of local space that was more detailed than anything the Zetharians had ever imagined. No hostile response detected. No indication they've spotted our position. Shin nodded with satisfaction. The human evacuation had been the largest military deception in the species' history. While the Zetharians had expected to find cowering populations and desperate defensive fleets, humanity had instead withdrawn to carefully prepared positions throughout the outer reaches of their territory. Mobile bases, hidden weapon platforms, and elite sniper teams had been positioned with the patience of species that understood the value of the long game. Target eliminated, Rodriguez confirmed as his scope registered the distant flash of impact. The Zetharian probe had simply ceased to exist, its advanced alien technology no match for a precisely placed kinetic strike. Clean kill. No debris large enough to provide intelligence. The Ghost Walker was already moving to its next position, its stealth systems rendering it effectively invisible to Zetharian sensors. The ship had been designed specifically for this kind of warfare, long-range precision strikes followed by immediate relocation. Its crew could remain on station for weeks at a time, methodically eliminating targets while remaining undetected. Next target cluster identified, Watanabe reported. 17 Zetharian probes in formation, approximately 400,000 kilometers distance. They appeared to be conducting a grid search of the Proxima system. Chin studied the tactical display with the cold calculation of a predator evaluating prey. The Zetharians were operating according to standard Imperial doctrine. Overwhelming force applied with technological superiority. They had never faced an enemy that refused to engage on their terms, that instead chose to fight from the shadows with weapons they couldn't even detect. Rodriguez, can you make that range? The sniper's enhanced eyes were already calculating the shot. At 400,000 kilometers, even light took over a second to travel the distance. His projectile would take significantly longer, during which the target would continue moving. The shot required not just incredible precision, but perfect prediction of where the probe would be several minutes in the future. Confirmed. Target is maintaining steady velocity and heading. I can intercept. His voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who had never missed a shot that mattered. The human sniper doctrine had evolved from centuries of small unit tactics, refined and enhanced for warfare on an interstellar scale. Where other species relied on massive fleets and overwhelming firepower, humans had learned to achieve strategic objectives through precision application of force. A single well-placed shot could eliminate a target that might otherwise require an entire squadron to destroy. Firing, Rodriguez announced. Meanwhile, aboard Admiral Krelnox's flagship, the confusion was deepening into genuine concern. The probe losses had accelerated to the point where entire reconnaissance networks were disappearing within hours of deployment. The pattern suggested an enemy force of impossible size and capability, able to engage multiple targets simultaneously across vast distances. Sir, we've lost contact with the entire Proxima search grid. 17 probes, all eliminated within a 30-minute window. The communications officer's anxiety was now openly visible. Krelnox studied the tactical display with growing unease. Each eliminated probe represented not just lost intelligence, but a demonstration of enemy capability that challenged everything the Zetharian Empire thought it knew about warfare. The precision required for such long-range engagements should have been impossible, yet the humans were achieving it with casual efficiency. Deploy escort squadrons for the remaining probe networks. If the humans want to engage our reconnaissance assets, they'll have to fight through our warships first. The order reflected standard Zetharian military thinking. When faced with an unexpected threat, apply overwhelming force until the problem disappeared. It was a doctrine that had served them well across dozens of conquests, but it assumed an enemy that would eventually be forced into open battle. Captain Zexmari received the deployment orders with grim satisfaction. His strike squadrons were among the finest in the Zetharian fleet, equipped with the most advanced weapons and shields the Empire could provide. If the humans wanted to continue their harassment tactics, they would discover the cost of engaging Zetharian forces directly. Launch all available squadrons. I want escort coverage for every remaining probe cluster. These humans may be skilled at picking off isolated targets, but They won't dare engage a defended force. His confidence was built on 3 centuries of successful military operations. The human response came 6 hours later. Rodriguez had relocated to a new firing position, his enhanced nervous system allowing him to maintain perfect stability even while his ship maneuvered through space. The Zetharian escort squadron presented a more complex targeting challenge. 9 warships in defensive formation around a cluster of reconnaissance probes. Multiple targets at extreme range, he reported to Chun. Formation suggests they're expecting engagement. Defensive positioning, overlapping fields of fire. Can you penetrate their defenses? Not their shields, not directly. But shields have to allow their own sensors through. If I can thread a shot through their sensor apertures. Rodriguez was already calculating the incredibly complex geometry required for such a shot. The target window would be measured in centimeters at a range of over 500,000 kilometers. That's impossible, Watanabe said quietly. Even with enhanced targeting, the precision required. Nothing's impossible, Rodriguez replied, his eye interfacing with the weapon's targeting system. Just improbable. The shot took 11 minutes to reach its target. When it arrived, the tungsten penetrator struck the lead escort vessel's primary sensor array with surgical precision, penetrating through the narrow opening in their defensive shields and continuing into the ship's main reactor core. The explosion was visible from several light minutes away. A Zetharian cruiser, pride of the Imperial fleet, had been eliminated by a single projectile fired from a source they couldn't even detect. The remaining escorts scattered in panic, their formation dissolving as they desperately tried to locate an enemy that might as well have been invisible. Confirmed kill, Rodriguez reported with the same calm professionalism he might use to describe the weather. Primary target eliminated. Escorts withdrawing. Admiral Krelnox received the loss report in stunned silence. One of his finest warships had been destroyed without even detecting the source of the attack. The implications were staggering. If the humans could eliminate capital ships with the same ease they had been picking off reconnaissance probes, the entire invasion fleet was potentially at risk. Sir, the remaining escorts are requesting permission to withdraw to minimum safe distance, his tactical officer reported. Granted, Krelnox replied, his voice heavy with the weight of a strategic situation that was spiraling beyond his understanding. The Zetharian Empire had built its power on predictable patterns of warfare. This invisible, patient enemy was forcing them to question fundamental assumptions about military superiority. In the darkness between stars, Sarachen's team was already moving to their next position. The elimination of the Zetharian cruiser had been a message as much as a tactical victory. The Empire needed to understand that humanity would not be conquering according to their preferred timeline. #Human Sniper Team arrives. Part 3 Emperor Vextar's rage was a living thing, filling the Imperial throne room with an aura of barely contained violence. The massive Zetharian ruler stood before holographic displays showing the systematic destruction of his reconnaissance networks, each blinking red indicator representing another failure of Imperial might. Around him, his advisors maintained careful distance, knowing that proximity to their emperor's fury could prove fatal. 3 cruisers lost in 2 days, he growled, his voice carrying harmonics that made the chamber's crystal walls vibrate. Destroyed by an enemy we cannot see, cannot track, cannot even comprehend. This is unacceptable. General Morketh, Supreme Commander of the Imperial Ground Forces, stepped forward with the measured caution of someone addressing an apex predator. His scarred carapace bore the marks of dozens of successful campaigns, but the current situation challenged every tactical principle he had ever learned. Your Majesty, our intelligence analysis suggests we are facing a new form of warfare entirely. The humans appear to have developed long-range precision capabilities far beyond anything in our experience. They strike from distances that should render accurate targeting impossible, then vanish before our forces can respond. Then adapt. Vextar's roar shook the throne room. The Empire has conquered 17 star systems by adapting to alien tactics. These humans are not gods. They have weaknesses. Perhaps, Your Majesty, but identifying those weaknesses requires understanding their methods. Our sensor networks cannot detect their weapons platforms. Our targeting computers cannot track their projectiles until impact, and their firing solutions demonstrate mathematical precision beyond our current modeling capabilities. Admiral Krell materialized in the throne room via hologram, his image flickering slightly as it transmitted across interstellar distances. His normally imposing presence seemed diminished, the confidence that had carried him through centuries of conquest notably absent. Your Majesty, I must request additional time to develop countermeasures. The human tactics are unlike anything we have encountered. They refuse standard engagement protocols. Our formations, our defensive strategies, our technological advantages, none of them appear effective against this threat. Time. Vextar's four arms spread wide in a gesture of disbelief. The Empire does not request time from inferior species. The Empire takes what it wants when it wants it. The Emperor's fury was understandable. For over 1,000 years, Zetharian military doctrine had been built on a simple principle: overwhelming technological and numerical superiority applied without subtlety or patience. Their massive fleets would arrive, demonstrate their power through devastating displays of firepower, and accept the inevitable surrender of their enemies. Species that resisted were crushed so thoroughly that they served as examples to others. But the humans had removed themselves from this equation entirely. There were no fleets to destroy, no planets to threaten, no population centers to hold hostage. Instead, there was only the persistent, methodical elimination of Imperial assets by weapons that struck from the darkness of space like the hand of some invisible god. On the bridge of the Ghostwalker, Sarah Chun was planning the operation that would demonstrate just how vulnerable the Zetharian Empire had become. Intelligence reports suggested that Admiral Krell himself was commanding from his flagship, the super dreadnought Eternal Dominion. The vessel was over 3 kilometers long, protected by shields that could withstand planetary bombardments, and armed with weapons capable of reducing moons to asteroid fields. It was also, Chun had realized, the perfect target. Rodriguez, I need your assessment on a precision strike against a super dreadnought-class target, she said, calling up the tactical schematics of the Eternal Dominion. The master sniper studied the massive vessel with his enhanced vision, his neural implants processing the defensive specifications faster than any unaugmented human could read. The ship was a fortress of alien technology, designed to be the ultimate expression of Zetharian military power. Shields are the primary challenge, he reported after several minutes of analysis. Standard penetrators won't breach super dreadnought defensive systems. But he paused, highlighting a specific section of a ship's structure. Their command bridge extends above the main hull to provide maximum sensor coverage. The design creates a narrow window where the bridge's independent shield generators don't overlap with the main defensive grid. Window dimensions? Approximately 2 meters wide for meters tall. Duration varies based on the ship's rotation cycle, but there's a consistent 17-second gap every 43 minutes when the geometry allows for a potential shot. Chun smiled coldly. 2 meters at interstellar combat ranges was essentially a pinpoint target. For any other species in the galaxy, attempting such a shot would be not just impossible, but literally insane. For a human sniper team with enhanced capabilities and specialized equipment, it was merely extremely difficult. Range to target. Current positioning puts the Eternal Dominion at approximately 800,000 kilometers from our projected firing position. Projectile flight time would be approximately 18 minutes, during which the target will complete multiple rotation cycles. Can you predict the shield configuration 18 minutes in advance? Rodriguez was already running calculations through his enhanced neural networks. The mathematics involved in predicting the precise position and orientation of a moving starship across such temporal distances required computational power that bordered on the supernatural. Confirmed, he said finally. Their rotation pattern is consistent with standard Zetharian navigation protocols. I can predict the shield gap timing within a margin of error of plus or minus 2 seconds. 2 seconds at this range translates to how much spatial variance? Approximately 40 meters of potential target displacement, still within acceptable parameters for a precision shot, assuming optimal firing conditions. Chun nodded with satisfaction. The shot was theoretically possible, which meant Rodriguez would make it. In 3 years of operations, he had never missed a target within his stated parameters. His enhancement augmented nervous system and the Ghost Walker's advanced targeting systems had achieved a level of precision that made the impossible routine. Watanabe, stealth assessment. Can we maintain concealment through the extended targeting sequence? The sensor specialist was already analyzing the tactical environment around the Eternal Dominion. The Super Dreadnought was surrounded by escort vessels, defensive platforms, and sensor networks designed to detect any threat within several light minutes of the flagship. Negative on standard approach vectors, he reported. Too much sensor coverage. But I'm detecting a gravitational anomaly in this region. Looks like a brown dwarf system about 2 million kilometers from the target. If we position ourselves in the brown dwarf's gravitational shadow, we can mask our emissions profile while maintaining line of sight to the target. Flight time for the shot from that position? 47 minutes. Well within Rodriguez's predictive capabilities, and the extended flight time actually works in our favor. The projectile will be effectively undetectable until impact, giving the target no opportunity for evasive action. Chun made her decision with the calm certainty of someone who had planned impossible operations before. The assassination of Admiral Krellnox would send a message that would resonate throughout the Zetharian Empire. No target was safe, no position was secure, no amount of defensive technology could protect them from human precision. Set course for the Brown Dwarf system. We're going to eliminate the Admiral. The Ghost Walker began its approach, moving with the patient stealth of a predator that knew its prey was completely unaware of the approaching danger. Rodriguez began his extended targeting sequence, his enhanced senses processing environmental data that would allow him to place a single projectile through a window measured in meters, across a distance measured in hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Admiral Krellnox stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying tactical displays that showed the continued harassment of Imperial forces throughout human space. The losses were accelerating. Not just probes now, but escort vessels, supply ships, and even heavily defended bases. The humans were demonstrating a capability for precise, long-range elimination that challenged every assumption about interstellar warfare. Sir, intelligence reports suggest the humans are using some form of kinetic weapon system with targeting capabilities far beyond our current understanding, his tactical officer reported. Each strike has been a single projectile, perfectly placed to achieve maximum damage with minimal energy expenditure. Kinetic weapons? Krellnox's confusion was evident. That's ancient technology. Crude, limited, inefficient compared to energy-based systems. Perhaps, sir, but the humans appear to have refined kinetic weaponry to a degree we never imagined possible. Their projectiles achieve near-relativistic velocities and maintain accuracy across interplanetary distances. The Admiral was beginning to understand the true scope of the challenge they faced. The Zetharian Empire had optimized their military technology for overwhelming force and spectacular displays of power. Human military doctrine appeared to be based on an entirely different philosophy: minimal expenditure of resources to achieve maximum strategic effect. In the depths of space, Rodriguez had achieved target lock. His crosshairs were centered on a point in empty space where the Eternal Dominion's bridge would be positioned in 47 minutes and 33 seconds, assuming his calculations were correct. Firing, he announced quietly, and sent death traveling across the darkness between stars. Hashtag Human Sniper Team arrives. Part 4. The tungsten penetrator traveled through space at 17% of light speed, invisible to every detection system the Zetharian Empire had ever developed. As it crossed the vast distance between the Ghost Walker and its target, Admiral Krellnox continued his strategic planning, completely unaware that death was approaching at relativistic velocities. Deploy additional sensor networks throughout the outer systems, he commanded from his position at the center of the Eternal Dominion's bridge. If these humans think they can continue their harassment tactics indefinitely, they will learn the cost of provoking Imperial might. Around him, his command staff worked with efficient precision, their movements reflecting centuries of military tradition. The bridge itself was a marvel of Zetharian engineering, a transparent crystal dome that provided 360-degree visibility while maintaining full protection from hostile fire. The design allowed commanders to survey space directly while remaining safely within the ship's most heavily protected areas. It was this same design feature that Rodriguez had identified as the flagship's critical vulnerability. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the outer sensor networks," reported the communications officer. "Several probe clusters have gone dark in the last hour. The pattern suggests coordinated attacks from multiple sources." Krelnox studied the tactical display with growing frustration. Each lost probe represented not just intelligence-gathering capability, but also imperial prestige. The Zetharian Empire had built its power on the perception of invincibility. These persistent human attacks were slowly eroding that fundamental assumption. "How many human vessels are we facing?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. Our sensors cannot detect their ships, and the attack patterns could be consistent with anywhere from a dozen vessels to several hundred. The precision of their strikes suggests either an enormous number of highly trained operators or a small number of operators with capabilities far beyond our current understanding." The truth was closer to the second option than the Admiral could have imagined. Across human space, fewer than 50 sniper teams were conducting the systematic harassment of Zetharian forces. Each team operated with the kind of enhanced capabilities that made them effectively equivalent to entire squadrons of conventional forces. On the bridge of the Ghost Walker, Sarah Chun monitored the final approach of Rodriguez's projectile. The shot had been in flight for over 40 minutes, crossing hundreds of thousands of kilometers while maintaining a trajectory that would bring it to the exact point in space where the Eternal Dominion's bridge would be vulnerable. "Time to impact. 6 minutes, 47 seconds, Watanabe reported, his enhanced senses tracking the projectile's approach through gravitational sensors that could detect mass displacement across interplanetary distances. "Target maintaining predicted course and rotation cycle. No deviation detected. Confirmed target lock," Rodriguez added, his crosshairs now tracking the actual position of the enemy flagship. Through his enhanced scope, he could see the massive vessel's bridged dome rotating slowly as the ship maintained its patrol pattern. In less than 7 minutes, the dome would complete another rotation cycle, and for exactly 17 seconds, the overlapping shield generators would create the narrow gap that would allow his projectile to reach its target. Chun felt the familiar calm that came with the final moments before a critical operation. The elimination of Admiral Krelnox would demonstrate humanity's capability to strike at the heart of Zetharian command structure. More importantly, it would force the Empire to reconsider their fundamental approach to the conquest of human space. "All stations, prepare for immediate departure following impact. Assume hostile forces will attempt triangulation on our firing position." The Ghost Walker's stealth systems were already preparing for emergency protocols. The moment Rodriguez's shot found its target, every sensor in the Zetharian fleet would be attempting to backtrack the projectile's trajectory. The human ship would have perhaps 30 seconds to relocate before overwhelming enemy fire converged on their position. "Impact in 90 seconds, Watanabe announced. Target shield rotation proceeding on schedule." Admiral Krelnox was reviewing deployment schedules when his tactical officer suddenly stiffened. "Sir, I'm detecting a gravitational anomaly approaching our position. Something small, moving at extreme velocity." "Meteor?" Krelnox's attention remained focused on the holographic displays showing Imperial fleet positions. "Negative, sir. The trajectory is too precise, and the velocity is beyond anything natural. Whatever it is, it's heading directly for our position." The Admiral looked up from his displays, his predatory instincts suddenly alert. In all his centuries of military experience, he had learned to trust his officers' concerns about anomalous sensor readings. "Time to intercept. Approximately 60 seconds, sir." "But, sir, the object is too small for our defensive systems to target effectively, and it's moving too fast for evasive maneuvers." Krelnox felt the first stirring of genuine fear. The implications were staggering. If the humans had developed weapons capable of precision strikes across such distances, no Zetharian position could be considered safe. The entire doctrine of Imperial warfare was based on the assumption that their superior technology could protect them from enemy action. All shields to maximum power. Emergency evasive maneuvers. His orders carried the urgency of someone who suddenly understood the true scope of the threat they faced. But the Eternal Dominion was over 3 kilometers long and massed several million tons. Ships of such size could not execute rapid course changes, and their shield systems were designed to stop massive energy weapons, not precision kinetic strikes traveling at relativistic speeds. Rodriguez watched through his scope as the Zetharian flagship began to turn, its massive bulk slowly changing orientation as the crew attempted to present a different aspect to the approaching projectile. But the shot had been calculated based on the ship's standard rotation cycle, and the sudden maneuver was actually moving the bridge dome directly into the projectile's path. Target acquired, he reported with quiet satisfaction. Impact in 20 seconds. The tungsten penetrator struck the Eternal Dominion's bridge dome at the exact moment when the overlapping shield generators created their 17-second gap. Moving at 17% of light speed, the projectile carried kinetic energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. But instead of spreading that energy across a wide area, the shot concentrated its entire destructive potential into a space measured in centimeters. The crystal dome that had been designed to provide commanders with perfect visibility shattered into billions of fragments. The penetrator continued through the bridge space, eliminating Admiral Krell and his entire command staff before burying itself in the ship's central computer core. Secondary explosions rippled through the flagship as critical systems overloaded and failed. The Eternal Dominion did not explode dramatically. Instead, it simply went dark, its engines failing, its weapons powering down, its communications systems falling silent. In the space of a few seconds, the pride of the Zetharian fleet had been transformed into a drifting hulk. Confirmed kill, Rodriguez reported with the same professional calm he had maintained throughout the operation. Target eliminated. Admiral down. Chun was already ordering the Ghost Walker to its emergency departure vector. Around the crippled flagship, escort vessels were frantically scanning space for any sign of the attackers, their sensors sweeping across millions of cubic kilometers in a desperate attempt to locate an enemy that had already vanished into the darkness. All stations, we are departing the operational area. Mission accomplished. The elimination of Admiral Krell sent shockwaves throughout the Zetharian Empire that went far beyond the simple loss of a single officer. The Admiral had been considered one of their finest military minds, and his flagship had represented the ultimate expression of Imperial technological superiority. The fact that both had been eliminated by a single, precisely placed shot challenged every assumption about Zetharian invincibility. Emperor Vextar received the news in his throne room, surrounded by advisors who struggled to explain how such a thing could have happened. The loss report was stark in its implications. The humans possessed the capability to eliminate any target within their range, regardless of defensive measures. The Admiral was protected by the finest shields in our fleet, General Morketh reported, his voice carefully controlled. The Eternal Dominion was surrounded by escort vessels and defensive platforms. By every measure we understand, the position should have been impregnable. Yet the humans killed him with a single shot, Vextar replied, his voice carrying a dangerous quiet that was more frightening than his earlier rage. They reached through our defenses as if they did not exist. The Emperor's advisors exchanged glances, each recognizing the fundamental shift that had occurred in their strategic situation. For the first time in Imperial history, Zetharian forces were not the hunters, but the hunted. Somewhere in the darkness of space, human snipers were stalking the Empire's finest ships and most skilled commanders with methodical precision. Your Majesty, the chief advisor spoke carefully, perhaps it is time to reconsider our approach to human space. The cost of this conquest is becoming significant. Vextar's response was immediate and violent. The chief advisor's broken body struck the throne room wall with enough force to crack the crystal surface. The Emperor's fury had found a target, but it could not reach the invisible enemies who were systematically dismantling his military machine. The Empire does not retreat, he snarled to the remaining advisors. Prepare the full invasion fleet. If these humans wish to play games from the shadows, we will burn their entire territory until there is nowhere left to hide. But in the darkness between stars, Sarah Chun and her team were already moving to their next target. The elimination of Admiral Krell had been just the beginning of humanity's response to Zetharian aggression. #Human Sniper Team arrives. Part 5, the largest invasion fleet in Zetharian history assembled at the edge of human space like a dark storm preparing to break across the galaxy. Over 3,000 warships of every class, from nimble destroyers to massive siege dreadnoughts, formed battle formations that stretched across several light minutes of space. Emperor Vextar had committed nearly half of the Imperial military to this single operation, determined to crush human resistance with overwhelming force. General Morketh commanded the invasion from the bridge of the super dreadnought Iron Vengeance, Admiral Krelnox's replacement having learned from his predecessor's fate. Unlike the crystal transparency of traditional Zetharian bridges, his command center was buried deep within the ship's armored core, protected by multiple shield layers and redundant defensive systems. Status report on fleet deployment. He ordered, his scarred features reflecting the harsh lighting of the battle-ready bridge. All battle groups report ready for advance, sir. Scout squadrons have been equipped with maximum defensive configurations. No vessel operates without full escort coverage. His tactical officer's voice carried the tension of someone who understood they were facing an enemy that had already demonstrated the ability to kill with supernatural precision. The Zetharian strategy was simple in concept, but massive in execution. The entire fleet would advance together, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire star systems. They would no longer rely on reconnaissance probes or extended sensor networks that could be picked off individually. Instead, they would present targets so large and so well-defended that even human precision would be unable to achieve meaningful results. Begin the advance, Morketh commanded. All ships maintain formation integrity. Any vessel that detects incoming fire is to alert the fleet immediately. 3,000 warships began moving forward into human space, their engines creating a light display visible across several star systems. It was intended to be a demonstration of Imperial might that would break human morale before the actual fighting began. The sheer scale of the fleet was designed to convince any rational enemy that resistance was futile. But humanity had already demonstrated that they did not fight according to rational assumptions. Sarah Chen's team had been reinforced for the coming operation. The Ghost Walker now operated as part of a coordinated network of 50 human sniper teams, each positioned throughout the approaching fleet's path. The elimination of individual ships was no longer the primary objective. Instead, they would target the fleet's command structure, communication systems, and key support vessels. Fleet composition analysis complete, Gene Watanabe reported from his sensor station. 3,047 vessels in 13 battle groups. Command structure appears to be distributed across multiple super dreadnoughts to prevent decapitation strikes. Rodriguez was already evaluating potential targets through his enhanced scope. The Zetharian fleet presented an almost overwhelming array of options, but his experience had taught him to focus on maximum strategic impact rather than simple target availability. Primary targets identified, he announced. Leading battle group includes what appears to be the main command vessel, plus 2 ships that match the signature for fleet communication hubs. Secondary targets include supply vessels and escort carriers. Chun studied the tactical display with the cold calculation of someone who had spent years perfecting the art of precision warfare. The Zetharian fleet was enormous, but its very size created vulnerabilities. Ships operating in such close formation had limited maneuvering ability, and their commanders would be reluctant to break formation even under attack. Coordinated strike pattern, she decided. All teams engage command and communication targets simultaneously. We're going to decapitate their entire command structure in a single operation. The plan was audacious even by human standards. 50 sniper teams would engage targets throughout the massive Zetharian fleet, eliminating key vessels within a narrow time window that would prevent effective response. The operation required timing and coordination that pushed the limits of even enhanced human capabilities. Time to optimal firing position, 14 minutes, Rodriguez reported. All targets will be within maximum effective range. General Morketh was reviewing final battle plans when his communications officer suddenly stiffened. Sir, we're receiving priority alerts from multiple scout squadrons. They report detecting gravitational anomalies approaching fleet positions. The general felt his blood chill. Intelligence reports had described the human attacks as beginning with exactly such anomalies, small, high-velocity objects that appeared on gravitational sensors moments before impact. How many contacts? He demanded. At least 50 separate objects, sir, all approaching from different vectors, all aimed at fleet positions. The implications hit Morketh like a physical blow. The humans had not been intimidated by the size of the invasion fleet. Instead, they had prepared a coordinated attack on a scale that matched the Imperial commitment. 50 simultaneous strikes suggested a level of organization and capability that challenged everything the Empire believed about human military capacity. All ships, emergency defensive protocols, random evasive maneuvers, maximum shield power. His orders went out across the fleet, but he knew they were essentially futile. Ships of Dreadnought class could not execute rapid course changes, and the human projectiles were traveling too fast for conventional defensive measures. The coordinated strike began exactly as Chun had planned. Across the Zetharian fleet, tungsten penetrators traveling at significant fractions of light speed found their targets with mathematical precision. The main command vessel took a direct hit to its primary communications array, instantly severing General Morketh's ability to coordinate fleet actions. Communication hubs throughout the fleet went dark as human marksmanship eliminated critical systems with surgical accuracy. Rodriguez's target was a massive supply vessel that provided ammunition and parts for an entire battle group. His shot penetrated the ship's main storage bay, causing a chain reaction of explosions that eliminated several thousand tons of military supplies in a single brilliant flash. Target eliminated, he reported as the supply ship's destruction lit up his scope. Secondary explosions detected. Looks like we hit something important. Similar reports came in from sniper teams throughout human space. The coordinated attack had achieved exactly what Chun had planned. Not the destruction of the entire fleet, which would have been impossible, but the elimination of its ability to function as a coordinated force. General Morketh found himself commanding 3,000 ships that could no longer communicate effectively with each other. His tactical displays showed vessel after vessel reporting critical system failures, communications blackouts, and command structure disruptions. In the space of 10 minutes, the largest invasion fleet in Zetharian history had been transformed from an unstoppable force into a confused mass of individual ships operating without central coordination. "Sir, we've lost contact with 47 vessels," his communications officer reported. Not destroyed, but unable to respond to fleet commands. Their primary systems appear to have been surgically disabled. The general understood the true horror of what had happened. The humans had not tried to destroy his fleet through overwhelming firepower. Instead, they had dissected it like surgeons, removing specific capabilities with precision that left the ships intact but combat ineffective. All vessels, withdraw to minimum safe distance. Re-establish communications networks. The orders felt hollow even as he gave them. How do you re-establish communications with an enemy that can eliminate your transmission systems from beyond detection range? Emperor Vextar received the fleet status reports in his throne room, his massive form radiating fury that made the air itself seem to vibrate with barely contained violence. The largest military commitment in Imperial history had been neutralized not through heroic fleet battles or massive defensive installations, but by invisible enemies striking with impossible precision. 3,000 ships, he growled, his voice carrying harmonics that caused physical pain to his advisors. 3,000 ships reduced to ineffective scrap by an enemy we cannot see, cannot track, cannot comprehend. Your Majesty, one brave advisor ventured. Perhaps it is time to acknowledge that the humans represent a form of warfare we are not equipped to counter. Their capabilities appear to exceed our defensive technologies. The Emperor's response was swift and final. The advisor's body struck the throne room wall with enough force to crack the crystal structure. But even Vextar's legendary fury could not reach across interstellar distances to strike at the enemies who had humiliated his empire. "Recall the fleet," he commanded finally, his voice heavy with the weight of imperial defeat. "All forces withdraw to defensive positions." For the first time in over 1,000 years, the Zetharian Empire was retreating. On the bridge of the Ghostwalker, Sarah Chun watched the massive enemy fleet begin its withdrawal with quiet satisfaction. The operation had achieved its strategic objectives without the loss of a single human vessel. More importantly, it had demonstrated that size and technological superiority were not guarantees of military success when facing an enemy that refused to fight according to expected parameters. Mission accomplished, she reported to the Human Command Network. Zetharian invasion, fleet neutralized, and withdrawing. Rodriguez was already cleaning his weapon systems, his enhanced reflexes maintaining the equipment with the same precision he brought to his marksmanship. Confirmed kills on all primary targets. Enemy fleet combat effectiveness reduced by approximately 70%. The human response to Zetharian aggression had been built on a simple principle that the Empire had never encountered: patience, precision, and the understanding that in warfare, it was not necessary to be stronger than your enemy. It was only necessary to be more accurate. Throughout human space, sniper teams began relocating to new positions, ready to continue their patient stalking of Imperial forces. The Zetharian Empire had learned a lesson that would echo through their military doctrine for generations. Some enemies could not be conquered through overwhelming force. Some battles could not be won through technological superiority. And some wars were decided not by the size of your fleet, but by the skill of individuals willing to take impossible shots across the darkness between stars. The Empire's expansion had been stopped not by massive defensive fleets or impregnable fortifications, but by humans with enhanced reflexes and very, very good aim.